is a graduate of Carnegie Mellon University. He's a student of history, especially railroad history. And as he discusses railroad art, you'll come to understand how thorough his knowledge is of an incredible variety of railroads. I met him through a friend locally, J.J. Johnston, who's an HO modeler near me. And when I first visited J.J.'s layout on the way up to the train room, the first thing you see on the wall is a ticket window that looked like a real ticket window, although it was on a flat surface. I was pretty impressed. And then the rooms upstairs, including the train room and the crew lounge, were all painted like the interior of a cabin, with critters looking in the doors and down through the hole in the roof. His paintings all seem to contain an element, a human element, relating to the scene. So it's not just static locomotives and buildings.
Most of this presentation will go over overview of select paintings that I have done for various clients. And then I'm going to conclude with a lick of images from the Pennsylvania Trolley Museum at Washington, PA, just in case any of you folks get a chance to go to visit that, as well as the East Broad Top and the Rock Hill Trolley Museum in Central PA. I grew up in Pittsburgh, so I've had this thing about trains and art, and they melded together in a marvelous way, initially through the EBT. And this has become a career that took me places that I couldn't have dreamed of and helped me build friendships that I couldn't have dreamed of either. So this is an opportunity to kind of share some of the details of these paintings. So this first one is a White Pass painting looking toward White Pass from Fraser. And I have a whole series of White Pass images to show you in a little while. These start, well, most of what I have here will be oil paintings, but I had the opportunity over the course of about 14 years to do about 50 pieces of artwork for the White Pass, and much of it was pencil drawing and ink drawing. So speaking of pencil drawing, here we're going to start with this. This is the Ant, which was the first steam locomotive in Washington State. And the coal mine that this little line served and that this engine served is sort of halfway between Russ's house and mine. And when I moved here, I had no idea that that this had been almost the right-of-way. I was almost on the right-of-way of this narrow gauge. So this is a pencil drawing. Again, most of what I do is oil, but I like the technique and the textures that pencil can bring. And those of you who are looking at things artistically, you can see that I've kind of faded this out as you get back to the back end of the train of the cars, the mine cars. So the focus is on the little ant. Unfortunately, this locomotive was cut up for scrap, but it was a part of our history here in Washington. So we're going to flip from Washington to Colorado. This is a unique painting that was commissioned by LGB Trains. Now, you know, LGB is now part of Markland. And a number of years ago, LGB came to me and said, we want to commission a couple of paintings from you that show our toy trains, but we want them in an authentic, true to life landscape. So what we have here is an 044 Forney, lettered for the Denver, South Park and Pacific, and I don't believe they ever had such a locomotive, but that's what LGB produces. So the setting that we chose was Alpine Pass, Colorado, and here's one of the, I guess, many stacked stone retaining walls that were a part of that fantastic line in the Colorado Rockies. So speaking of the Rockies, here, this is a piece for a company called Unicover. This outfit is based in Cheyenne, or at least they were, and they did a lot of stamp collecting and coin collecting products. And so one of the more interesting projects that I had with them was a series of 50 paintings, one representing a historical scene in each state. Some of you may know the historian Dan Cupper from Pennsylvania. Dan was the historian on this project, and I the artist. We had a blast doing these 50 paintings. The only catch was we needed to do them in just slightly over a year. So I was pretty dang tired after I did that, but it was fun. And this particular setting you may recognize as Georgetown Loop. So here is one piece that was done for an early Durango and Silverton traveler's guide. This is the 482 along the Animas River. The Durango, the Durango Silverton, Cumbers and Toltec, as you well know, took ownership of the 168 that had been in the park in Colorado Springs for years. My family has family in Colorado, so it was an annual treat to go down and look at this locomotive in the park. And then it was quite a thrill to realize that it was going to get restored. So the C&T came to me, John Bush, then president, came to me and said, let's do a pencil drawing of the 168 at the tunnel there over Toltec Gorge. And then we'll take that to next level and do an oil painting. So this was the first drawing that I did for them. And they used this, I guess they sold prints of it, and I think it probably showed up in online capacities as well. And that then led to this piece on Tanglefoot Curve. John wanted me to show this as it would have been historically accurate with that little bridge in the background and the snow sheds. So here we have the 168 and the 5-car historic fleet there at Tanglefoot. This was released a few years ago as a 14 by 18 poster. Another one of the series of 50 that I did, I'm mentioning a few minutes ago, was this piece representing the Oahu Railway and Land Company. You know, I never thought of trains in Hawaii when I was a kid. when you think of Hawaiian transportation, you think of surfboards. So when I found out about the narrow gauge, I was quite interested in it. And so Dan chose this one, this particular part of or setting of the Oahu Railway Company as the subject matter for this particular piece in the Unicover series. These were released as cachets, you know, first day covers for collectors, as well as small posters. So from Colorado, we're going to zip up to Skagway. This is one of a series of about 14 calendar paintings that White Pass Yukon commissioned for me. And as I said earlier, there were a bunch of ink drawings and some pencil drawings as well. This is one of my favorites of a train headed northbound with the Sawtooth Mountains in the background. And way down in the valley there is Lynn Canal. Some of you may know that in White Pass history, the company had a viewing platform at this spot, which is known as Inspiration Point. And it was customary to stop and have passengers get on and off so they could view the grand vista there. This is a gathering of White Pass locomotives. From the one steam locomotive there to the 90 class diesels to the couple of the Alcos. Again, a favorite of mine. It was one of the few opportunities I had to paint so many locomotives in the setting there at Skagway Yards. And then at White Pass, I don't know whether any of you folks had a chance to visit up there when they did this this rotary plow excursion a couple of years ago. Michael Brandt, who was the vice president with whom I worked, as well as with Gary Danielson, the president, decided that they really did want one of the calendars to reflect the rotary fleet. So that's what we have here. Down in the lower left-hand corner is a ptarmigan, a bird, the state bird of Alaska. And Gary, the president of the company, decided early on that we ought to have some kind of critters in all these paintings. So if you look at the series of them, there's a moose here and a deer there and all kinds of birds. So it's been kind of a fun thing. And I guess people, when they got onto that, would try to figure out what was Craig going to paint the next year, what kind of bird, as well as what kind of train. Now, most of my art is unique in that most of it has been commissioned by operating railway companies or railway suppliers or agencies like transit agencies, departments of transportation for various states. This is commissioned art used in the same way that railroad companies in the past used art. So yes, there is a group of folks who collect my work as independent contracted pieces of art, but most of what I've done is this kind of art with a commercial purpose. And the reason this is the backbone of my work is that I'm wanting to reintroduce into our culture the role of railway art, because art can speak in a way that goes beyond photographs and invites people in to a participatory relationship. So that's why companies like the White Pass and Amtrak have used so much of my work. And here you can see just a variety of products that the White Pass has used. This case, this was all retail. Amtrak has used a lot of my work, and most of that has been a giveaway. Here's another banner piece. This piece is about 10 feet long, and they've made copies of this for display in some of their stations from Skagway to Bennett, and they gave me a copy of it, and I use it on occasion when I have a display of my art. So it's a neat compilation of samples of the ink and pen drawing and oil paintings. In the background, you see the original 18A bridge from the 1890s, when that was declared unsafe back in the 1960s. The railway built this one, the 18A, and it's a fun piece. I don't have time in this presentation for a lengthy expose of the story, but the short version of this is that the Vice President, Michael, and I were out on that bridge. We had ridden a train out of Skagway. We got off on the far side. We were there to take pictures for this calendar painting, and we were walking back across the bridge and had completely forgotten that there was a train, a southbound train, that snuck up behind us. And I jumped off at the end of the bridge there, and Michael came running across behind me. Soon it was all over the radios that the Vice President and the artist were caught on the bridge. Well, I couldn't let that pass. And when I got home and I did the first production sketches of this painting for the railway, I sent them up and they liked them. And then I did a second drawing that showed Michael running across the bridge in front of a locomotive. Well, I guess when they opened that email in Skagway, they laughed for an hour, and they had it posted on the company bulletin board there for years. So from the White Pass, we go to the East Broad Top. Russ asked me if any of my art was for sale by the company, and I said, yes. This is the cover piece for Frank Kuiper's book on the East Broad Top, Twilight and Dawn on the East Broad Top. It's a pencil drawing and one of my favorites. Another recent piece, this has not been marketed, but it shows the rebuilt 16 northbound from the depot at Rock Hill Furnace. Used to be called Orbizonia Station. This is just a short distance north of the building and crossing Black Log Creek. Again, a pencil drawing. A piece that is for sale in print form at the East Broad Top is this one of the 16 and the M1 and the number 8 coach behind it. A friend of mine donated the funds to the EBT to have this painting produced and to produce posters for sale. So I worked closely with EBT to come up with the setting, and after going through a number of lots of photographs and sketches, this was the scene that we chose. So I'm going to walk you through how a painting develops here using this particular image. This was about the third or fourth sketch into the concept, and we have here again the 16 on the left at the coal dock, and the M1 to the right. The gentleman who was commissioning this wanted the M1 a little bit closer. So in this version, the M1 and its car, the tow car, are a little closer, and now we've added another figure into the painting. So we have these workers in there. So at this point, then the painting gets transferred, or the sketch gets transferred to canvas, and I start to lay in the color in a loose way. Very thin oil paint, not thick at all, just thin enough to go on easily and quickly, and yet thick enough to leave some color there, so I can begin to get a sense of the tonal nature of the painting and the color balance. And you can see at this point, there's a little more detail coming in the upper left with the hopper there in the shed, some of the trees, and beginning to work on the boiler or the locomotive. You get that sense of the shine on that glossy paint scheme. So then a little bit further on, the engine is about done here. Not much work done on the M1 nor the tracks. And this is the final version. And what we have here then is the poster that has been printed, and these are available for sale in the gift shop at Rock Hill. So I'm going to wind this down now with a quick run through of some paintings for the Pennsylvania Trolley Museum. Now, a little bit ago, I mentioned that I do a lot of commissioned work for individuals, collectors. I do a lot of commercial work for operating railroads, and included in that would be museums like this, Pennsylvania Trolley Museum at Washington, PA. But much of the work that I'm doing for this museum and others is not retro. It is future. It's painting the possible. It's showing what could be. In some cases, that would mean what could be the case for a museum expansion, or in the case of Amtrak, what could be for railway development. So this shows this new building in the right-hand corner. This is the $15 million visitor center that they just dedicated in November. And here was one of the early versions of the interior. So kind of take the roof off and you can look down in there, and kind of it invites you into all these fun spaces. There's sort of a Where's Waldo character in some of my art, and I've been known to paint my clients into renderings. So, you know, if anybody commissions a painting, you might end up in it. Another one of the exterior versions, this represents the final architectural plan for the parking lot area and the design of the building. Another, and this was the final of the interior versions, that gives us a little more detail and shows the trolley station in the background, which was part of the Pittsburgh, Harmony, Butler, Newcastle interurban that ran north from Pittsburgh. The Trolley Museum wanted to have this kids play area and a gazebo and such. And so this was one of these renderings in this whole series that showed people what could be and what would be. And as a result, the museum used all this kind of art in a very effective way for fundraising and promotion. This is a black and white, again, a pencil drawing, a little bit tighter than some of the other ones. This was done to show the canopy, the train shed canopy at the Washington County Fairgrounds. The interurban in the background has not yet been rebuilt, but it was a Monongahela West Penn interurban. Here's the other side of the new visitor center with a couple of Philadelphia Suburban Transportation Company cars, and those were interurbans and suburban cars, as well as an 1100 series Pittsburgh Railways PCC. And the final two images here are oil paintings. These two are for sale at the museum. I hope some of you get a chance to go there, even though it's not narrow gauge, it's actually broad gauge, Pennsylvania broad gauge. But the museum is a marvelous example of what not just money and time can do, but vision and volunteers. So what we have here is a scene, 1951-ish, along the former main line of Pittsburgh Railways to Washington interurban. This is now part of the main line of the museum. And both of those streetcars, the 1613 in the background and the 1711, operate there regularly. And the last painting is the Pittsburgh Steelers, The Terrible Trolley. I don't know how many of you may know about this, but it was one of a whole series of cars that were painted up in the early 80s. And a little girl decided that the transit company really needed to have a Steelers trolley painted. So she wrote to the mayor. The mayor agreed, sent it off to Port Authority Transit, and the Terrible Trolley emerged from the paint shop shortly thereafter. So that car has now been returned to the Pennsylvania Trolley Museum and will be running again probably by November. And this painting was just one of the pieces that is used for fundraising and promotion for that project, and then the previous car, the previous PCC car painting is used the same way. So that's all I have for you tonight. This is a kind of a sample of what I've done. We've walked through some interurbans here. We've walked through other trolleys. We walked through East Broadtop and a bunch of other narrow gauge pieces. And if any of you have any questions, please feel free to ask.